All right, guys, welcome back. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back to Tomboy Official. Happy Pride Month, everybody. Happy Pride Month 2022. We made it. I know we all know, that Pride isn't all about, the rainbows and festival parties and, going out and getting trashed and, just partying till the break of dawn, chaps on, ass out kind of thing. Even though, if it's available in your city or if you're able to get to a location where such activities are available and that appeals to you, then why not? I see no problem in celebrating life, celebrating freedom, celebrating who you are. I find value in, people challenging concepts like body shaming, challenging concepts like, food and health and mental health and, how we think about our bodies and our partners and our connections and authenticity and connections with others and, safe spaces and community. I think all these things are very important. So, if my voice sounds raspy, it's because I'm talking a lot quieter than usual. I'm working from this hotel space that has very thin walls, but enjoying myself. About to hit up this work party from noon to 4 at the beach, but thank you, Southern California. That's how we can do it. But my system crashed for work. Not sure if it's the server or what, but it ain't working. So, it's moving so slowly, and everyone else in our Microsoft Teams chat is saying the same thing. So I'm just going to record while I'm waiting to be able to work again. So definitely there are lessons learned when it comes to, relationship building. A lot of times, people want to, get into a relationship, and there is the common relationship that people get into, which is, and there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying, like, most of us were raised with, not everybody, but statistically speaking, the majority of people are raised with heterosexual parents, are raised with not only their parents being hetero, but also having like heteronormative teachings about sexuality, sexual practices, what's considered culturally okay or not okay, these types of things. A lot of us are taught in these certain ways, and in school systems as well. A lot of us had the same sex ed of like, here's a lot of scientific terminology and some insides of, cross-sectional human anatomy of like sex organs, and you have sex by, basically they teach you how to have babies pretty much, or how to get pregnant. But as far as like a well-rounded sex education, it's not too common that people in my generation had that in school. And also, a lot of people didn't really have parents that even had a sex talk with them. I mean, my parents didn't. They never, like, sat down and were like, look, like, I don't know, any kind of birds and the bees conversation or anything like that. They never did that. Like, the closest that ever came to that were maybe, like, one thing I can think of is that there was a time when my, and I don't know what grade I was in, but it must have been before 10th grade, because my mom used to pick up myself, my brother, and my sister from a certain school, and I don't remember why, but there was something that one of my siblings was probably doing after school, on campus, where my mom would come pick us up, and I was in the car with her, maybe her and my sister, because my sister was way younger. So her and probably my sister, we had a minivan, and I would be in the car with my mom, and I think my brother, maybe he was on a sports team and had like basketball practice or football practice or like some kind of like flag football or some kind of sport or something. Or maybe my sister was in some kind of activity, but I remember multiple days a week for a period of time being the first one to come to the car, and being in there with my mom, and I don't know what grade I was in. It was lower than 10th grade, or 10th grade at the oldest. I think I was in an older grade, somewhere between like grade 7 and 10, but I really don't remember the exact age. But it was kind of like not really young. And I remember a couple conversations of, I don't remember what I mentioned. Like, I remember my mom kind of like briefly mentioning something about the, I guess, lack of sexual encounters between her and my father. Like, she didn't like go in detail. She was just like, yeah, we haven't been like doing that or whatever. And I was kind of like, I didn't really want to know. I was like, I don't remember how it came up in conversation, but she mentioned it. And then another time, she was talking, and I don't remember what she mentioned, but I remember myself saying like, oh, I think masturbation is wrong and it's evil and people shouldn't do it. But I never learned that from my parents. I learned that from watching a pastor on television, because as a kid I was so like involved in church that I did sometimes watch church on my free time. Like, I think BET maybe used to have church on Sunday sometime. I don't know, but I remember I used to watch BET a lot. I had a TV in my bedroom, and we had cable, and I would watch BET, and I would watch, TBN and MTV and like movies and stuff like that. But I remember, like, I don't know, like, I knew kind of what masturbation was from a very young age. I didn't know like the word, but I just remember like later on coming across like the terminology, like knowing what it was. And then from that sermon that I heard on television, like a little later on, but before this conversation, I remember thinking that there's something wrong with it, because of the pastor that was saying something. I don't remember what he was talking about, but it was one of those pastors that was like up there, like shouting, yelling, kind of talking very like passionately. And I was like, oh, this is wrong. So I like shouldn't do this, but it was like way later. Like, after I'd already been doing it for like God only knows like how long, probably, I don't know. Um, so I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, I don't really want to like listen to what this pastor says. Like, who's this guy? So I wasn't like, it was kind of like always in the back of my head, but I never really like I don't remember ever like actively like making a point to like try not. I was like, well, maybe I'll just do it less, or like less often or something, or just like whatever. I don't know. I don't really know. But then, yeah, I remember mentioning that to my mom in the car, and she never really commented about it or she didn't like agree with me when I made that comment, and she didn't disagree. She didn't say anything. She didn't like expand on it or anything. So I was like, well, that was kind of like the extent of conversations about sexuality with my parents. Other than one other one, when my dad, I guess he saw that somebody had been looking at adult content on the internet. Like, this is back before any of us knew how to like delete your browser history, and we like had a shared desktop and like in the living room, like, but there are like certain times a day when it's like, okay, I'm home this time of day, my brother's home this time of day, my parents weren't really like home, or like, there was like a gap in time between like when you could like be online and like have a little bit of space to yourself. But mind you, the computer was always like in the living room. Or in our old house, we had like a little office room that was like between a hallway and one of the back bedrooms. So we had a computer there. So we've never really, up until when we got laptops, we never had a computer in like a space where you could just like be on there like using it. Like, it was always like in a public area. But still, like, I knew there were times when like family would not be like around all the time, because my family was pretty outgoing, active, as far as like hobbies and things. Like, my mom would like shuttle us around in LA nonetheless. So it's like when she would leave, it's not like she'd be gone like 5 minutes. Like, she'd be gone like for a while. And then like my dad wasn't home often. Like, he was working a lot or like doing other stuff. And so there were plenty of times where we were just like unsupervised on the internet. And I browsed around and like looked for stuff, but it's kind of interesting that the first things I looked up were like guys, and that was probably like in my teens, but I would look up guys like that were interested in other guys, but like younger guys, kind of like twink guys. I don't know if they were what age they were. I mean, it didn't matter for me then, because I was like a teen probably. And so this is kind of like preteen, teenage years, probably around 10th grade or so, 9th or 10th grade, at least, because I just remember what house we were in, and we moved into that house when I was in like 9th or 10th grade. I think we moved there when I was in like 10th grade, so that we could have like a year of residency there to be able to go to the public school across the street. And so I remember like looking at, I don't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was like XY magazine, like, but it was just like the same cover. It was like a cover, but I never like purchased anything or bought it or anything. I just remember coming across it and being like, this is a cool website, but it didn't like update or anything. But like, I was just intrigued by like how I found it interesting. I was like, why am I so like drawn to this? But like, that's all I really knew. Like, I was never like looking into like heterosexual couples or like women even, or like just like guys. Like, I would watch probably like guy like solo videos and stuff, but like it was usually gay guys. Like, that was kind of more my taste, and I was always kind of like, why do I like looking at like gay guys? Like, I never really understood it. And then like, yeah, I mean, it kind of all unfolded later on, but I mean, like, yeah, it was kind of interesting because I was never like fully like at school like crushing on guys like or girls. Like there was never really anybody that I really was interested in. Like there were like three guys. So there was one guy who was like older, not older, but like in an older grade. And he was, athletic, a black guy. And I was like, well, ideally, this is the kind of guy my parents would want me to be with. And so, I told one of my friends, Jocelyn, like we didn't really talk much, but we kind of like were black and there were like not really other black females. So I remember we kind of talked briefly about like some crushes that we had, and I was like really into this band Immature. I kind of liked they weren't really androgynous, but they weren't like super masked guys. They were kind of like, sensitive R&B artists kind of thing. But, I used to read like Word Up magazine and Right On magazine, and I think I would read like Bop magazine, and there was like some other magazine. It was like the white magazines and the black magazines, basically, like pop culture stuff. And then yeah, I just remember being like really interested in Immature, and I would get the magazines, like spend my allowance on like magazines with them on the cover or them in the magazine and stuff for like a good couple years. I was really into them. And then my friend, I guess I kind of liked everybody in the class as like friends. Like I didn't like really have enemies. I just kind of talked to everybody a little bit at least, but like I had my like main group of friends, but I never was like never willing to talk to certain people. And like so we kind of vibed on both like being black females and having crushes on this band Immature. And then I think later on they started calling themselves IMX or something like that, but then like Immature was their name from the start. And then she was asking me like if I liked any of the guys at the school, and there was a guy that I was kind of, I guess, interested in. This computer. There was a guy that I was interested in, but he was more or less like into one of my friends. So and I mean I wasn't like really into him. It was just like, so the first guy that I was, the first way that it came up was we used to have this spirit week, and then it was like, I guess the end of the week or the week before, I guess, there was this time period where you could basically bid on, it was like a slave day, and then they changed it to like servant day because the connotations of slaves. Like, so they did eventually change that terminology, but basically it was mostly guys that would get auctioned off from grades like 7 to 10, and it was mostly like girls who were like crushing on them, who would like bid. And then there was that guy in the older grade. He was like in high school and I was like in junior high, and I remember like my teacher being like, my friend being like, oh, like, did you, like, because we both were saying that we had a crush on this same guy, that we found him, like, attractive or whatever, and I didn't. I just, was saying that kind of because I was like, well, this is appropriate. Like, if somebody found out, nobody would care. Like, nobody would be like shocked or surprised. My parents would be happy with this. Like, he's got a good reputation. He's a really nice guy. He looks attractive. But I did actually have a crush on a guy that was a different guy. He was maybe 1 grade older than me and was a basketball player as well, a black guy. He was one of the best basketball players at the school, and then he was just kind of shy, and he used to hang out with these guys named Alpha and Zeta. They were these brothers that were really smart guys, and the older brother was really skilled at playing piano. And so I remember I was kind of into, that group, because like his friend group was nice and they were all nice guys, but they were just like smart and athletic. And I was like, that was, like nice, and they had nice personalities, but they weren't like egotistical or anything. And so I kind of just liked the way they were, and I was really into sports too. So I was like, in my head, I was like, this would be cool if like I could hang out at his house, and like he had a sister that was like younger than me, and I was like, it would be cool if I was friends with his sister and then friends with him and his mom, and if they would let me come over and we would like play basketball and video games and go to church together and stuff. Like, I just wanted to hang out basically. But I thought I was like really into this guy, but I thought I was into this other older high school guy more, when I was in like 7th grade or so. And I remember, me and my friend talking about like, oh, like, she asked me, I think she was like, would you have bid on him, like, if there wasn't like a crowd or whatever? And I was like, yeah, I kind of wanted to like bid on him, but there were like some other like really boy crazy kind of girls that like were very like open about their interest in guys, that were always like flirty with him, and he was flirty with them all the time, and like they were like always like like turning each other on and stuff, like after school, and like I would be like observing this. I'd be sitting at a table trying to do my homework, and they'd be like on this little couch like across from like in this little room where we could do homework and study, and it was like couches, chairs, and like those big like picnic tables, but like indoors. And I would sit at the picnic tables and just kind of watch how they would like flirt with each other and like all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, like this is interesting. Like, because I didn't know anybody else that was like doing anything like that. Like, most of the people I knew were really very ultra conservative, like not even really dating, not even really talking about dating or crushes or interests. Like, that was even still a little bit taboo, because it was a very religious school with a lot of religious upbringing type of people. And so I was like, okay, this is kind of something that guys like, and this is how girls get their attention and all. Like, I was just kind of like observing, because I was like, how the hell else am I gonna figure out like what is going on out there? Like, because I didn't really know what was happening. So yeah, my friend asked me that question, and then I remember responding, as I did that. And then I remember shortly after that, like being in the kitchen, because we used to bake pies, these apple pies that would cost $20 for like fundraising, because we would go to trips like from LA to San Diego and like all over, doing all kinds of trips and stuff. And so we would fundraise by baking and then selling pies for trips. And like $20 a pie is a lot, like, and we had a lot of people purchasing them, so we would bake a whole lot and they'd always sell out. And then we had a teacher that would have us like learn how to do this, and we would all be in the kitchen, like a whole class of like, I don't know, 8 of us, I don't know, a lot of us. And then me and that girl started talking about this guy again, and then I I remember, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I made a comment about like how I had a crush on this guy, or how I found him attractive, or how he's hot or something. I said something along those lines. And the teacher, I remember the teacher, who is, she's a lesbian lady, and I never really knew that she was a lesbian while I was in school, but she was a mask presenting female, very like outdoorsy and everything. And I never really knew like why I kind of liked, I didn't like have a crush on her, but I liked her, as in like I liked her enthusiasm, and just kind of her mild-mannered nature, and just how she was like cool with things. And I remember her giving me this like look, like, and it's kind of interesting that I understood the look, and that look was kind of like, oh, like that's not true, you don't like him, like kind of. And like, I knew I didn't really like this high school guy. I was just kind of saying it, and she probably knew that I was gay before I did. Like, and she didn't like give me a look like in a rude way, but it was just kind of like, it's kind of interesting how I picked up on when I was saying those words, and I knew multiple people heard me. When I was saying those words, I knew that that was not true. I was like, I am not interested in this guy. I'm just kind of like playing it up because it's like a safe person to be interested in. And, I never talked to him. I never really like cared. Like, it's a small school, so we all like knew about each other. But yeah, that was an interesting experience. And then I remember after that experience being like, oh, like I like, didn't really like anybody, like, at all, really. Like, I can't think of anybody that I really had a crush on up until maybe my senior year. I guess it was my junior year, because there was a senior at the public school. So I went to public school junior and senior year of high school, and there was a senior named Mario Gutierrez, really sweet, sensitive guy, and like, he was nice, and that's basically it. Like, I would sit behind him and like in Spanish class and certain classes, and just like watch him. Like, Spanish was one of my better classes, so I didn't really even have to pay attention, because the school I had gone to before I'd already like surpassed, because I would just like be practicing Spanish with my Spanish speaking friends, and like, being around them. And like every Sunday there was a sports league where on Sundays, I was around like people speaking Spanish very often during soccer season, and I would just be around people like that all the time. And so, I understood enough Spanish to like just, not pay attention in class, and then they just give me the homework assignments and I just go home and do it, because the books we were doing at that school weren't as good as the book I was already done with, and then all the practice I'd had on my own. And so I remember like, just like looking at him, and then there was this kid who sat kind of behind me, and he was just like, oh yeah, I know a secret about you, but I don't want to like embarrass you or whatever. And he said something like you have a crush on Mario. And I was just like, no, like Mario likes you or whatever. Like, I made some weird comment that made like no sense, as like a comeback. And then like Mario heard it, and then he was like, ooh, like kind of like, she got you, or like whatever. But even though it was like, he could tell that like Tyler was trying to like embarrass me about it, I guess. And then like I wasn't like too bothered by it to my recollection, but I denied it. I wasn't like, oh yeah, I have a crush on this guy. But I did, but it wasn't like anything too like interesting. It was just kind of more like, okay, like I like him. Like he was an attractive guy. And he had a good reputation, good personality. Everybody kind of liked him. And that was all. That was kind of all. There was really no change from there. Probably up until about like I was dating people during like grad school, not so much during my undergrad, because I was just during undergrad I was like pretty swamped. I wasn't really dating. Like I was definitely socializing and mingling a whole lot during undergrad, but I wasn't like dating anybody. And then I started dating someone later. Like how old was I? Like I started dating in grad school pretty much. A couple people I dated. But I started gravitating more towards like bi people, because I was like, okay, I could date like a bi guy, you know. And so I just dated like bi guys. I didn't really date straight guys or anything. And then you know, I don't really remember like actively having crushes on a lot of people. I mean, I remember I was like in 3rd grade, I was like in love with the community theater. Like when I was a kid, it was like a children's community theater, and all the kids were like 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade age, and I was like in 3rd grade or something, and had a crush on the girl that played Peter Pan. I thought, you know, with her pixie cut and how she was in the boys like Peter Pan clothes, and like that was the first time I remember being like, oh, I'm like really into this. She was a good singer, and I was just like captivated. I was like, oh my gosh. And I remember wanting to tell my friend that was like next to me, and I was like, hey, like, you know, and I was like, like I shouldn't tell him that. I should keep this to myself. And I don't know how I knew that, but I was like, this is something I need to keep to myself, because this is a gay thought. Like I kind of vaguely knew. I was like, this is a gay thought, and I should just like keep this to myself. But I never really put 2 and 2 together, probably until like near like grad school, when I started like gravitating more towards like LGBT kind of like friends and crushing on them. But we didn't really talk about LGBT topics or anything. It was kind of just like a little bit. Like I had a friend, I think we had this like human sexuality class, and you know, I had a lesbian friend in that class, and I remember we were able to write out our whole like sexual history or something. Like you could just write it. And I remember it was grad school, so most of my papers were like 30 pages, and there was no page limit. But I was like, well, all my papers, to get an A, usually 20 to 30 pages is like an A. And so I was just thinking about, okay, but then I did just kind of freestyle write it, and I had enough to fill 30 pages. Like I was plenty, you know, even though I wasn't really like running around the streets or anything, like I had plenty to write about as far as like in my mind what was going on. And I might actually read through, not live on the internet, but I might actually see if I can find that paper and read it and see what it said, because like I'm kind of curious to know what it said. But I remember like my friend, I remember like there was this African American female friend I had in that class, and I remember like we would text each other, email each other or whatever. Like I was pretty like open with them a little bit, and I remember, you know, starting to be more open with people in grad school. I was like, that was the first time that I felt like I was in like a safe space. Undergrad too, but grad school more so. Just the people I met were just such good quality, like just like couldn't compare to any other thing, any other type of situation. I was just so enamored by so many people. So I really was like in love with a lot of the things that were going on in grad school, and I really admired a lot of the people I met and started having these deeper connections. And I was able to be more authentically myself. I felt like I was able to put my guard down. I didn't have to be like tough shell, sarcastic, like kind of like, you know, get away, like I don't like you, like jab here and there, you know, like in the Adventist community, I kind of had to be that way as like a protective measure of being like, hey, you know, like I am a soft, sensitive person, but I couldn't really be like that when I was like around other Adventist people, because I was like, yeah, I gotta keep like a tough shell, because these people, you know, I see them every day of the week, so I can't let myself, like, I can't really let them in, because like they're not safe people, and I still feel that way, unfortunately. But I would say yeah, so this paper we had to write, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about all this stuff before, but it's just interesting that it's on my mind. This paper we had to write was, you know, I messaged my friend, because I was like, you know, how many pages did you write? Because I wrote like 30 pages. And my friend was like, damn, like you wrote 30 pages. I think she said she wrote like 7 or something like that. And she's trying to get to 14. And I was just like, oh shit, like I wrote too much, you know? And so I remember trying to like scale mine back, because I was like, it's maybe not normal to write so much like about this topic. And every week we had like a prompt that we had to like write like a 1-pager on, and then we'd watch like videos in the class and like comment on them, and it's kind of weird to talk about, honestly, but because a lot of this stuff, like I haven't really like sat down and like processed what was going on, but now in my current self, it's easy to look back and be like, oh, okay. So, I remember as part of the class, we had to write this paper. It was basically just like a sexual history paper or something like that, like of our own. And we also had to give a presentation, but not of the paper, of something different. And I remember it being like a little bit of a challenge, because I was like not too familiar sharing like sexual topics with the class, but I was like, I felt comfortable enough to do it in my own way. And so I shared about my just my history basically. And I think I got the paper down to like 20 something pages. And then I remember going to class and we're all sitting like in a circle. We would kind of arrange the desk in like a little circle. And before the professor would get there, we were all there already. And then, the TA was one of the people in our cohort. She would collect our like 1-pagers. And then I remember it was the day that paper was due, and I was like sitting in the class, and I don't remember why we were like talking about all kinds of stuff, but like I remember I like to get there early because I like to talk to like my friends. Like we were a small cohort, and it was a fun time talking to people in the class. And so I went in the class that day that the paper was due, and then I remember that friend putting me kind of on blast. Like she was just kind of like, yeah, Grace wrote like 30 pages, and I'm just like, oh, wait. But the thing is like, I was always just kind of like this very shy, reserved person that like wasn't like, I've never been like very like outwardly sexual like in a public arena, other than if I'm like really drinking or like really stoned or like, you know, like at a gay club and like somebody approaches me and they start like, you know, like dancing up on me. And like the last time that happened wasn't that long ago, and you know, I welcomed it. You know, I've had, you know, females come up and be like, definitely they're showing they're interested, and you know, I'll dance with them, and like if they want to like touch things, I don't really mind. Like it doesn't really bother me at all. Actually approve of it. I'm just like, please just go ahead, you know, like I'm not put off by it at all. I actually like it a lot, so I'm like, go for it, you know. But other than that, I'm usually not like around my friends doing these things. I'm kind of like, I'll go off and just like disappear and go do my own thing over there with somebody, you know, someone else. Yeah, that's kind of how I'll kind of get together, how I'll like interact more on a sexual level. But yeah, like the class was interesting, and this was in grad school, so we were able to talk in more depth about things. And I remember going to a sex shop, a sex boutique with one of my friends, and you know, I remember being there, and at first I was kind of cracking jokes, and then there was some video I remember being into where there was like this hetero couple, and I guess they were like tickling each other with feathers or something. I don't really know what the video was, but it was just like playing in the background. And I remember my friend was like still shopping around and looking around, and I was like watching this video for a while, like probably at least 3, 4, or 5 minutes, you know. I was like watching it. Like I wasn't like, you know, just I was watching it, you know. Like I was just like, this person I went with was a guy, and I was just like watching this video. I was like not even like in this project anymore. I was just like into this video, and like, you know, I didn't really feel too awkward about it. I was like comfortable a little bit, a little drawn in, because I'd never like been like in a public place watching some like erotic kind of video. It was just kind of like, I guess I liked the experience of it, not so much the content of the video. Not that I didn't like the content of the video, but I didn't necessarily like care as much as I was just like, oh, this is a pretty comfortable space. It's like well lit. There was like a, you know, like a kind of like the person who was like there. It was just me, my friend, and maybe 1 or 2 other people in the whole shop. That were in and out real quick, and then me and him were just like looking at every single thing in the whole store, because it was part of the project, was to like look at certain things. But we kept the worksheets like in the car, because I was gonna bring them out initially, and I remember him being like, wouldn't it be weird if we like bring a like checklist? Why don't we just keep it in the car? And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. And so, you know, I was uncomfortable at first, just kind of like joking about the like little maids outfits and all this kind of weird little stuff, how it said like one size fits all, and I'm like, really? Like, that can't be right. I'm like different stuff like that, where I was like, okay. But yeah, we got, you know, into that store and like looked at everything, and he asked the person at the register a couple questions about the like penis pumps, about like for enlarging and things, like if they really work, and like I was kind of like giggling, just like, oh my God, I can't believe he's like actually asking about this. And then, there was like a downstairs section that was like LGBT, like mostly like LGBT twink guy videos. Like I remember looking at the twink videos section. These are just all on the shelf. And then it was a pretty big store. I think it was in Pasadena or something boutique. I can't remember the name, but it was nice. And I was like, okay, that was a good experience. So that, along with like being in the class where we would always watch, like we would always have a prompt that we would turn in before class would start, and then we would get back our previous prompt from the previous class that was just checked off that we did it. Maybe some comments from the professor on there, but it wasn't like grammatical or editing or anything. It was just kind of like comments to like expand on kind of our own mentality and psyche about the topics and stuff. And then we would just start, like whatever the topic was or whatever, like we would watch the video that he had, and then we would go around and like everyone could give a comment. And I don't think I ever commented on any of the videos. And then there was a certain point where we started doing presentations, and so every week we would have a presentation or a video if somebody wasn't presenting. And so I remember one class when the professor asked my lesbian friend like about how to explain about how to find the G-spot. And I remember her first, she was kind of like hesitant, and then she kind of explained it, and I was like, oh, like, okay. So I think I learned about what that was from that class from her. And then I think later on, like I did a presentation that was on the Ananga Ranga, like Ananga, then the next word Ranga. It's a book from India, and I first wanted to do the Kama Sutra, but then I found that other book, and so I bought off probably Amazon back when back then they only really had books and stuff. So I remember buying off Amazon this book, this Kama Sutra and Anangaranga book, kind of mixed topics with like a lot of like old school, like ancient Indian artistic pictures. It was like traditional type pictures, but it would still have like the people and the positions and everything. And it would have all the like explanations. And you can get this book, I'm pretty sure if you just type Anangaranga PDF or something, you can get like the whole book online, like for free. Like it's translated into English and stuff. And it was a good book. Our school library had it, the university library. And then I was reading it for the class. It was basically like sex strategies, like tips of like things you can do for like physical intimacy, but it was like tips for like physical intimacy, but it was I'm blanking. How do you say this? It was basically available like to try to like, you can rent it from the library. And so I started learning a lot about it because I was like, I need something I can present on that's not going to be like awkward for me. I have to be able to give a good presentation. So I was like, what can I present? And so I remember getting that book with the pictures to pass around to the classmates. And I remember my professor being like, Grace, because it had like all these like pretty explicit pictures, but they were like, if you know like art from India, it was like that style art from India from like ancient times. Like, it wasn't like modern art. It was like ancient looking pictures, mostly of people that were like from India. Like, you could see by like their garb and their complexion and their like facial features that they were like of the culture. And it was like a whole book, very well written. I wish I had the name of it. I don't know where I put it, honestly. And I remember having that book and the book from the library and passing them around for people to look at and giving a presentation about it. And then I remember another time in class where the professor wanted me to comment on one of the videos that he was showing, because I'd never commented on anything on my own. And then he asked me what I thought about it, and I was like, I don't know, it's kind of like boring. Like, I didn't know how else to like verbalize what I was trying to say, but I was just like, it's kind of boring compared to some of the other videos that we've seen. It's kind of dull and boring. But I guess what I was trying to say is like, it doesn't interest me. It was just like a straight couple having like slow, sensual, missionary sex, and I was just like, this has nothing to do with anything. Like, I didn't know how to verbalize it. I was just like, this is like the furthest thing from what I would have any interest in, like, naturally, to really want to actually look at on my own, or to even look at during class. Like, I was just kind of like, okay, we're watching this, but whatever. Like, I didn't feel anything about it, other than just like I was spacing out, and I was just kind of like, this is boring, like, yawn kind of thing. And he kind of was trying to ask me to expand, and I was like trying, but I didn't really have the words. I was just like, I don't know what to say. What else to say? Like, how else to describe like my experiences of like viewing this video. I didn't really know how I felt about it. So, yeah, I was getting kind of like, ready to kind of, want to be connected, with my friend. Like, I remember my friends did this bisexual presentation, and I think they did it together, and one of the friends was a guy, and I remember him telling me like, oh, he never acts like this, because he was kind of acting like more effeminate and flamboyant. And he mentioned that like multiple times, like, oh, I never really act like that, like how was the presentation, was it good? And I was like, yeah, it was really good. And he asked me a few times about what I thought about it, and I was thinking, well, maybe he's bi, but then also I thought he was gay, like, when I met him. I thought he was, like, he's never really, I don't know, like, he just kind of does this thing. But I just assumed he was gay, and also he was like besties with that with the lesbian chick that was in our cohort, and then we all got like really close. And I was never like fully out to them till like way after the fact. I visited one of them at San Francisco Pride before the Rona, so it was probably like 2018 or 2019 or so, and that's the last time we really saw one another. But yeah, like, I was like, wow. But it was just, I feel like it was I was a bit stifled, because even through most of grad school, when I was in grad school in LA, like I was still, other than 1 year, I was mostly living at my parents' house. So I think a lot of that contributed to me being like not too overt or open about, my sexuality. And even to like, now it's like, okay, now I am like in spaces where it's like there's other gay coworkers and I'm around other gay staff and we have gay clients, and like, I worked at a place where I'm pretty sure everybody knew I was gay there. Like, just we never really talked about it. I remember I had one client on a Valentine's Day in like 2019. She was a client I'd worked with since I was like a practicum student, and she would always get into relationships super quick, and then like, like she'd have a crush, like somebody, and then like be involved and like half wanting to move in within like a day or two. Just not very good boundaries. And I remember her asking me around Valentine's Day, because I think we worked on Valentine's Day or something, or the next day was Valentine's or something. And I had a session with her like right then, and she was just like, are you going out, for Valentine's Day? Like, are you dating, like, do you have like a boyfriend or a girlfriend? And I was just like, oh yeah, like I'm not really doing anything specific, but I'm dating somebody. And then she's just like, oh, so what you're saying is that like you're dating somebody but it's not really going like you want. And I'm like, no, it's going like I want, but it's a little early for me to be like with this person. We're going out on dates, but like it would be early for me to like, because we had just met like probably like 3 weeks before or something. And so like I think I met somebody in like January, and then I was like kind of like, it's kind of soon to be like trying to like get involved for like a Valentine's Day situation. For me, I was like, it's too early for this. And so I didn't get with her. I did, well, obviously, I mean, but that was the first time that I explained to one of my clients kind of how I felt. And, I had other clients that were, I think they pretty much knew what I was interested in. They were all respectful. Like, none of my clients were really like, oh, like about me, like they were kind of like, I think they kind of knew I was like in myself, and nobody really seemed to have a problem with me. And I remember having like at the same job though, but in a different building, having a crush on one of my coworkers. That was probably the first crush I had on a female, of somebody that was like, even though she was married, like I was into her and I knew she was lesbian. I don't think she knew about me, but like she was always complimenting on my clothing style. Like I remember she liked one of my button downs, and I remember she liked my jeans, and like I remember I would like actively avoid her. Like I would use like a certain copier in the back of the building because like she would be in the front, or I'd like hear her coming because she'd wear like these Doc Martens, and like I tried to like not talk to her too much because like I was really, really shy around her, and I like couldn't focus at work at all whenever she was around. So I really tried to like not talk to her too much. But I remember like one of the happiest days was when I was like talking to one of the other coworkers. We parked next to each other on one side of the parking lot, and she came like running, and there were those like hedges in the middle of like these low hedges in the middle of the parking lot, and she like ran over and like jumped over the bushes and came over and like, hey, what are you guys talking about? And I was kind of like, like she was saying how she's stressed at work, and I was like, when I look back, I'm like, dude, there were so many times that and I ended up actually going on a date with her, in which I blew it, totally blew it. But when she wasn't married, I had swiped on this app, and I was just swiping away one day, not even like looking, and then she commented back on my profile about like, hey, is this you? And I'm like, oh, like imagine like someone you had a crush on that you worked with. She suddenly had left abruptly from work, so we'd had no contact. And then all of a sudden, like, probably about a little over like the end of that year, I guess, she was like wanting to go out, and I'm like, oh shoot, and like, even when I look back at like how that date went and how things were, and like, I'm like, damn, I really blew that. But I mean, yeah, so that's kind of how I came into what I'm doing now and where I'm at now with things. Like, now it's easy to just date or whatever, but I'm wondering too, because I'm kind of back at the house with my folks, I have really noticed a significant change in like my comfort. I think about things like I'm doing laundry and I've got like some like guys like jockey shorts in here and like some boxer briefs in here, and what's my mom gonna think, or like certain kind of conversations and topics that come up. Like, she'll be like, oh, like when you get a husband, or like certain comments about things, and I'm just getting kind of like not uncomfortable, but I'm like, oh, we're back to this again. And like, I just met up with two of my really close childhood friends. One I've known from second grade, the other one I met in like third grade. And our parents, we all grew up together and everything. And they're connected with the church. And after talking to one of them for a while, I mean, I know he tells us stuff because he's trying to be open, but also, he tells other people's business, like about his parents' mental health and about one of my friends' mental health, and like kind of how he has a comment about one of my friends' work histories and stuff, and just stuff like that, where I'm just kind of like, it just doesn't feel safe anymore. I don't really think he means wrong by it. I just think he's so comfortable sharing things with us that he just shares like everything. And I don't really like that, because then I start thinking, like, what's he going to say about me, to other people? And so I don't really share with them about myself. But yeah, we tend to otherwise I just kind of don't interact too much with those types of people. I tend to kind of have the mentality, like, I do what I do. I don't owe anybody an explanation. I don't owe anybody, identifying information about my personal life. Like, if you are there and part of it, more than just catching up at a coffee shop once every year or something, like, if you're there and you're part of it, then you'll be able to if you're there and part of it, then you'll know what I'm doing. But I feel like the people who don't know what I'm doing is because they're not really involved in my life. And so if you're not involved, I'm probably not going to be talking to you about it anyways. That's just kind of my mentality on it all. But yeah, there's all this. But yeah, I think that's kind of all I really had to say. It's just kind of like my own history with, like, shame of sexuality and shame of like gender related, thinking, and all kinds of different shame related topics. That's, shame is like an opposite type of reaction than pride. Pride is like you are embracing something, and you don't owe anybody anything, and you're proud of who you are, you like yourself for who you are, you have like a positive connection with who you are on a lot of different levels, and versus like not feeling that way at all. because it's possible to not feel that way at all. To actually feel opposite and negative. But yeah, guys. Well, I'm hoping that my work is back up and running, because I am really just... I'm kind of over it today, and I haven't even started like work. I still have to go to this 4-hour work party, and I'm like literally almost falling asleep right now. I'm not in the mood. I didn't sleep too good. I'm tired. I didn't have a lot of caffeine. I had a couple sips of C4, couple sips of some Coca-Cola. I haven't even eaten anything yet, so I'm probably gonna eat and then shower real quick, and then probably just head out to the work party. But all right, guys, thanks for listening.